in this case, now that the referendum passed and we're going to be doing a lot of construction, it may make sense to try and backload some stuff that we can to put it in the out years when the borrowing cycle starts to decrease. So just keep that in mind as a general theme. There's stuff we need to do because it needs to be done from a maintenance perspective, where it is in the cycle, but there may be some stuff that's a little more discretionary.
Yeah, and I was muted out of practice, I guess, for Zoom, but my comments kind of dovetail in what Seth just shared. Stacy Novitz just expressed some concern about the amount in next year's and what they were looking to do. So I think it does make sense if we can push some things into years in the future. As you can see from this document, we got 1 million this year, and as of now, we'd be asking for 6 million for next year. So it's just a huge jump for a town that pays as we go. We're a very well financially run town, and that's a huge jump tax wise. So there are a few things that as we go through, Bill and I can chime in on that could wait, and then I think there's some that we feel really need to go forward for next year or the year after.
Okay,
You
that sounds
ready
great.
for me to share?
Yeah, please, and keep that in mind as we go through. Thank you, Bill.
No problem. So the first two are, district wide. I don't think you want to spend any time on those. One's 25,000, the other one's 75. I made the 25 small, so it wouldn't be hopefully debated. The high school, we have approved this year is the stage lighting. So that's already been approved. The next, energy efficiencies, those are all important things, but, we can definitely put those off if so inclined. It's only 50 this year, but it's, 740,000 the next year. The rooftop units, it's a big number. We've had a lot of problems, really since the whole time we've had the facility, and in the last few years, it's gotten sizably worse. When we have a major failure on those units, it takes a long time to get the parts. And in today's COVID world, if we can't move the air, even if it's comfortable in the room, we can't use the room. So that would be one I would think might want to keep up. And I guess we could talk about splitting them. The time frame to order them, even if we had the money, is 20 weeks. It's a long time. 20 weeks.
Can I just say that when it comes to air conditioning, I think we've all kind of developed a couple of thoughts on HVAC over the last couple of years. And one, I think most of the board members agree that HVAC is a matter of security, because if the air ain't working, doors are being propped open, and that's perimeter vulnerability. Or having to close the school down on extreme heat days, which also interferes with our school calendar, academics, and all of that. And then secondly, with COVID, I think we've all kind of developed an appreciation for how air handling can help to minimize the spread of communicable conditions like that. So, I'm not in favor of pushing HVAC type replacements off. Plus, we might be able to qualify, maybe not for this project, but for Polson, we might be able to qualify for state money on HVAC right now because of COVID. So those are my thoughts on that.
Emily, would you like me to keep going, or would you like to discuss anything else on Brown? I was going to go over the first 2 years in detail. That's my plan.
Yep.
So
Bill, can we go back to the stage lighting replacement?
yes,
It totals out $25,000 more than it states. What's that about?
I'm not really sure I'm following you. You mean in the details? If I go to the project itself?
I know what Steve's asking. I can help out. So most projects that Bill does, see, oh, it's perfect. See where he has design budget in there, Stephen?
Yep.
That was paid for a year prior. So just as the items on this list have a design year and then a funding year, this had a design year. It's no longer on this list because it was 2021, 22.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So here's the breakdown of, here's the details. As Dr. Cook pointed out, there's a construction budget done in February 27th, 2018. That was the construction number. Here's the escalation cost. There's the design cost. And then we had some other state permits, testing, advertisement, construction administration, commissioning, other. If there's something, that I don't really, that I note, I've had put other things in there, and then I would describe what it is up here. And then here's the total project cost. But we already funded it. So that's just how it works. The breakdown goes. Does
Okay.
that answer your question?
Yes, it absolutely does. Thank you.
Cool. Anything else on the Daniel High School? If not, I can go to Polson the next 2 years, unless you want me to go to the years 4, 5, and 6.
I think we can move on. I agree with what Seth was saying about the HVAC. The energy efficiencies, it's not as big a number, but I think the HVACs are too critical to push back much further.
So Polson is, a 1960 school. I have it up in the headlines, 1960. It's 150,000 square feet. I'm summarizing. And here's this year, it's 62 years old, 63 years. And we haven't done a lot of, other than replacing the rooftop units at half the building in the 90s. And we put an addition on the gymnasium and the locker room area in 1989. We haven't really done a lot of capital improvements to the building. So the doors and hardware are a big deal. Does the building function? And if we had a person that needed special arrangements, would we do whatever it takes to make sure that person can get through the school and had comfortable egress? We would do whatever it takes. I mean, we've done it in the past. There's no philosophy that I've ever heard that we wouldn't take care of anybody that needed, without embarrassing them or doing whatever it takes. We would make it happen. So, and there are bathrooms that, they're old and tired, but they work. So, that's the bathrooms. Those are two big numbers. One is the ADA bathrooms, and the other one's the ADA doors and hardware. Huge numbers. We could talk about maybe trying to split it. The next one, the design numbers is really in the windows, and there's some really, really old windows in the building that need to be addressed. Are they failing? Do we need to do it today? No, we should definitely have it on the list. It's out a few years. I don't see it hurting us at this point. Maybe living that way it is. The millwork, that's the appearance of the school. Remember, 1960, we built the building. Some of the millwork is bad. We've been ripping it out and not replacing it because we didn't have the funds. But if there's something needs to be done, we would do it.
Hey, Bill?
Here's one. Go ahead. Question.
Yeah. Is there, this may be crazy, but, is there any chance, as we're looking at things like window replacement, that if there is increased security funding, that windows could come in one way or another under that envelope? Are there more secure windows, or a case to be made that certain windows increase security? Just a thought.
The answer is yes. We have done some minor things, in the front entry, putting, reflective tape up, whatever film, so you can't see in the front offices. We're doing, significant renovations at the front of the school right now and removing the windows and stuff. So the answer is yes, but and then where would you start? Then you go around the building. So the front would be my first, then you go around the perimeter, and I don't know where you start. You could say, let's just do the east wing or west wing or south wing. You could do it in stages. If you wanted to try to break it out, but they're pretty far out. It's really, how much can we afford, and then what section? If we come up with a plan, we can then start addressing it.
Yeah, I was just looking at whether there was a way to tap other funding sources under a security umbrella, that's all.
Right. One of the more controversial things that's been on the plans forever, I'm just skipping over the roofing because that's just on there and out there. We should replace it and it's on the plan. Is the gym changing it into a learning center? It's out pretty far. It's always been on there. It was done with one of the studies we did many years ago, maybe 2015 or 2010. I can't remember. It was one of those plans. Should be discussed and addressed. It's pretty far out. I don't think we'll resolve it today, and I don't think we need to today, but someday. Pavement, both the driveway and the parking lot, library furniture, kitchen improvement. We need a plan. I don't even have funding in that, but I know that I need to have a plan and it needs to be on the plan. So I left the description, but I don't even have it in our 5-year or 10-year plan.
Just
Go
one
ahead.
question, Bill,
Sure.
without going into detail, and I'm sure it's, time consuming. Is the basic plan to transfer in the gym into conventional learning spaces, classrooms? Is that the deal?
So you have to forgive me. Not too many people are excited about my plan, so I like to talk about it, and you have to bear with me. So what we did is we talked about the gym space when we were looking at different ideas for the Polson School, when it was just a 7-8 and we were going to expand it, and where could we have options. So DRA was doing the planning for us, not design, planning, and they showed us a space that they had converted into 1 story with, say, one corner was with offices and a loft. It had a loft on above, but most of it was just 1 story open, a library, a learning center that was multi-use with office space. It was pretty cool. The example they showed us, and they told us how much money it cost. So we put that in. So there's never been a real agreement on what the money should be for, just other than expanding the learning space, and specifically was targeted for a library media center kind of thing.
Okay. Got it.
Sorry for
Thanks.
blanking. Sorry, Emily, go ahead. I must have been talking too fast.
No, that's okay.
No, that's all right. I look forward to having a deeper conversation on that. I just want to know if they were looking to turn it into classroom cubicles or something else. Thanks.
No, library media center.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Bill, still looking at Polson, for the bathroom 88 update, we've done the design work. I mean, I'm just looking at like what can be moved or broken out. Like we already are committed to the design work of the 96,000. So I don't see much in this year that could really be moved in Polson.
So we already have the 96. If you wanted to move the whole thing out 1 year and let me do the design for 2 years, we could do that and come up with a plan. Maybe we could split it up. Or you could say, maybe next summer we'll try to do half of them or some number. We could definitely split that, I think, and make it palatable. And these are capital planning projects. So it really, how much money do we think you can afford? And then we could break it over 3 years if we wanted to, and I don't see the harm in that. And especially if we know that we could commit to, we said 750 every next 2 years, or let's say we said 500 over the next 3 years, I think if we know how much we could spend, then the planning could even be better.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know that we can do that. Thank
Same
you.
with the doors and hardware. We put the design money in, and then let's say, hey, we split it. We could just say we'll put 50% in each year, or a third. I mean, that's how we used to do it. We used to look at how much we could afford, and we just split it out over the years.
Yeah.
And now that we're talking about the numbers and they're actually coming up, we should be looking at them realistically. Any other questions on Polson?
Yeah, just real quick, the design, I mean, the doors. Is that also, isn't that also a security matter? Like, are we gonna have to redo the doors so that they have like similar locks that are easy to use in lockdowns and that, a single key can open if there's an incident or something like that.
So, and I think you're 100% correct, Seth, and I probably should have pointed that out. Not only is it ADA, which is the big dollar amount, the doors and hardware are old. We would definitely want maybe to move that up and move the bathrooms back, because then the classrooms could be locked, secured, and we could do improvement on security. So
And-
you're right. I agree 100% that's probably relative to security, and everyone's really worried about security, rightfully so, versus the bathroom use. So the bathrooms, stay old another couple of years, but we put the secure in the doors. So Seth, great point.
Yeah, maybe we swap those and maybe we can also pick up some federal dollars to do that, because if it's, if it's security focused.
Well, we have the money in the design for next year, so we are going to address the design. And we'll leave the 1.2 million in for the following year, do it all at 1 year, is my thoughts.
Yeah, and hopefully we can leverage some federal and state dollars for that
Right.
comes down from the new legislation if it passes. Okay,
Yeah, and
thanks.
I don't see why, if we sat here today and decided we have the 96,000, and if we went to the CIP committee and say, can we want to change our priority and move the bathrooms back and move the hardware, doors and hardware up. It was a planning tool. That's, the doors are older and the bathrooms were, in need of, maybe more priority 5 years ago. Now we need the doors and hardware more of a priority because they work. It's only about the security.
Yeah,
That really became the highlight of the plan. And so that's a consideration. We don't have to decide now, but it's a thought.
thank you.
Just to confirm, what you're suggesting there is to keep the door hardware design in this line, move up the door hardware work to this line, and then move the bathroom ADA update 1.4 million, move that out a year. Is that right? So an overall,
That's one of my ideas, definitely.
so that would save like 200,000 with that switcheroo this year.
Yeah, and we put the design and the construction in, or we put half in this year and leave half in next year, because we probably couldn't do it all that fast. I don't know if we could do it all. So what we've done in the past is we prioritize the classrooms, then we do the other rooms, then we do the offices, and then we do where the kids are mostly, and then we go to the other spaces. So we could break it up. So if the committee felt that security is more of a priority now, we could re-switch the priorities on this list and move stuff around, is my point.
Yeah, and I think it'll end up being more than 200,000, hopefully, if we are able to snag some federal money and we have a shovel-ready project for that security concept.
Yeah, and we could just say half the money. So it would be 600,000 plus the 80s, I'm rounding 680,000. The first year we do
Yeah.
design and some construction. Once we get the money in July, I don't know. There's no way though. I don't think that we could practically, I don't know this, but the plan that I had was to replace the doors and some of the frames. So you really can't do that easily
year.
during the night,
Yeah,
if you're just
That's a
changing
summer
the-
project.
I like that. I think that's a good option.
Anything else on Polson?
No, there's nothing really else to talk about this.
So now we're on Brown. The parking lot expansion's been in for a long time, because I think we started at year 5, so now it's up here. We have the design numbers, so I can hire someone to do the design and finalize it. And then next summer, we get the money in July, so I wouldn't be able to bid it out until the following summer, because I couldn't bid the work if we don't have the funds. We won't get them until next July. So that would be July of 24, we would do the expansion of the parking lot. The library, I put that back in. The library furniture and fixtures, I think we're gonna have a K-5 school. I think we're a little short on that. The walk-in cooler is just, age appropriate. If we could probably move that out if we wanted to try to get a few more years out of it. The kitchen renovation was in the plan because we're thinking that we're gonna have kindergarten through 5 there, right? It was always a 6, 7, 8 school. The 4th and 5th graders seem to do okay in there, but how the kindergartners going to do, we're going to have to look at redesigning the whole kitchen so we can serve the kindergartners. Is it essential? No, it's just good planning.
Mhm.
Everything else is out pretty far except for furniture replacement, millwork. I think that's an important one. Some of the original classrooms done in the 70s, the millwork is pretty bad and tired. East wing windows, they weren't really in the original project for the $6 million. So I think we want to keep that in there. I think that's important. And then the playground for the kindergarten, I think that's an important number to keep in there.
I mean, looking overall, like I'm looking at, year by year for Brown, it's a big jump from this year to next year, but it's still, 800,000. It sounds to me like, Bill, the only thing that maybe could be pushed out would be like the coolers could be. But what else? I mean, if anything, or broken down or broken apart if we want to save money here.
So I think the coolers could be moved out. I think the kitchen renovation isn't essential. I think it's a nice to have, but I think we could run the kitchen without doing it. We could push that out if we had to. I don't think the library furniture, but maybe the other furniture stuff we could push out, but there's not much there.
Yeah.
My thought on the library would be, we might want to take another look at that. We'll want to make it as consistent as we can with the new school. But as well, it's gotten smaller now. And I know that price, everything's going up, but because we're using a classroom for part of that space, we'll still have a very, very large library. But do we want to take another look at that? Could that be end of the year funds maybe, if it comes down a little bit?
Yeah, definitely.
That sounds good and sort of keeping in line with the renovations. That makes sense. Okay.
Hey, Bill, the window replacement, east wing, that wasn't part of the renovations or the building project or the development of the kindergarten wing. That's the east side, isn't it?
Yes. So I can't do it in a short sentence, so you're going to have to bear with me. When we originally put the $6 million in for the expansion into a kindergarten classroom, and we budgeted $6 million, weren't putting it in the east wing. We were putting it in the front of the building, 5 classrooms. We expanded the scope. We met with the principals, the superintendent, and Gail got involved, and we decided that it would be better if the kindergarten wing went into the east wing, and we renovated that section of the building. So no, the windows were never part of the original plan, but we added scope to that $6 million, and we never increased the money. So there's a bunch of stuff we put in there. We definitely cannot fund it all. And so the plan is to see if we can fund the infrastructure and then see what we can do over the next couple of years, maybe with year-end funding. The library is definitely one of them. We're talking about, and I haven't brought this to the committee yet, but we're talking with Tecton about expanding. Oh yeah, we met the other day. We talked about expanding the scope, and he gave you that list of expanded services. So you were at that meeting last week when he talked about expanding services.
Yes.
We're going to need more than $6 million to do the windows. Love to do that sky. They're talking about doing a clear story for that in space in the middle, so it's light and airy. They talked about $1 million number for that, and we didn't have money in our budget for that. So short answer is, wasn't in the scope originally.
Well, maybe we can cultivate a conversation with architects, particularly since that's, a lot of new construction and the renovation of the kindergarten wing, about making the case for security and windows. So once again, we can go after perhaps federal funding, and particularly that wing, where the windows are low, might open the door for some creative options if we can tap into different funding that we can tack onto security. Just a thought.
Agreed.
Good thought. Anything else on Brown? So I missed something? So we did Brown, Polson, and Hand. Okay, so the next one is the big one. So here's the athletic plan. The tennis courts and the baseball field are the big numbers. All the other stuff is very minor, that the athletic director, gave me. But the tennis courts and the baseball field, has been on the planning and the tennis courts forever. We just, for 10 years probably, we've been talking about all of those, if not longer. So it's just come up. It keeps getting on the plan, keeps moving up every year. Now it's sort of there. What's the number just for athletics is $3.3 million.
Bill, can I ask, the tennis court lights, do we currently just not host evening or nighttime tennis tournaments, or what are we doing now?
There's no lights on the baseball field or the tennis court. And in my opinion, those are two good spots for us to light because they're inside our property. They're not abutting neighbors.
Yeah.
Not that we're not going to get some flack from that, because there will be some neighbors that will see them. But today's lighting design are much better than they used to be. You don't see the glow from 10 miles away anymore. They're down and directed. So I think it has great potential for the tennis and the baseball to expand the season when it gets dark so early in the fall.
Yeah. So where I'm going with this is I'm wondering if we can, move out $230,000 if we were to just rent lighting for the tennis courts as needed.
So great idea. I know that the little leagues do that all the time. They have those moving lights.
United Rentals or whatever.
Right. My concern is, though, it's done by little leagues and not by the Board of Education or me. And if you want to put lights on any of our facilities, you're going to have appropriate lighting to the field and away from the field. And we have to have a professional person design the lighting. You just don't put lights up without looking at the big picture, because I think there's concerns about parking, walking and back and forth, in the dark. We just can't do that. It's a good idea. I'm not saying it's not doable, but we just have to look at, we'll need more than just lighting up the court.
And where are those courts located?
So the tennis courts are between
Right.
Jeffrey School and Polson, in a little depressed area. They're actually tucked in on, behind a hill. You can't see them from Cops Road because there's a big hill. If you've been, where the portables are at Jeffrey, if you walk through the woods, you'd run into them.
Yeah, so that's different than just lighting the courts. You would need a lot of lighting to light the path to the parking.
Right. And you want appropriate lights.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so the question is, if we have not been using tennis courts lights yet, and, we just have games done during the day or whatever, is that something we could push off and then do it right when we get to it a couple years down the road?
I think the thought was, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably cheaper to do it while everything's dug up, so you're digging up the concrete for the courts. The other thing in the courts themselves are we have 4 courts. I think we're the lowest in our athletic conference, and most around have 6 for matches. It does cause us to, it was a big issue last season. It was not this season, but we had to make some cuts last season, and that became a pretty big deal coming out of COVID, that we were cutting kids from sports when it was really more a facilities issue than, say, a tennis issue or team issue or,
Yeah,
ability issue.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that the town of Madison has very pristine tennis courts, even at the school or at the town itself. The only tennis we have are the private clubs. So I think, that's how I think people have handled it in Madison. They just go to their private club. There's 2 of them.
Yeah, so I'm not opposed to keeping that there. I just was questioning, just bringing it up for conversation's sake, but it does seem to make sense to do it all at one time while the hood's open, so to speak.
No, it was, we've talked about all those kind of different permeations. That was one that we brought up too. One thing Bill and I just talked about this morning in preparation was when we're doing the baseball field, Bill's going to also be looking at geothermal for Polson, and so that's going to take some time. And the Polson project, as you know, is just kind of getting started. So it's unlikely that we would have the ability to do the baseball field and the lighting that quickly. Certainly, if we had the funding, it can wait and we can get a price and everything all set. But that might be an area ripe for pushing off a year to do that, or splitting it.
So if we plant HVAC hardware underneath the field while we have the turf up, right? What happens if it needs to be serviced? Do we have to tear the field up to get to it?
The short answer is yes, but the more detailed answer is we're talking about wells that, are drilled into the ground that have loops that are guaranteed for 50 years, and they're just
Okay.
piping. So there's not say that they never go wrong, and there could be something wrong with the piping, or it could fail, but that stuff's supposed to be pretty ironclad, non-problematic. It's just moving water underground.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the way it's been explained to me, that, and if we did it at the same time, right before we did put the wells in and then put the field on top of it, makes sense. Now, this is just a theory. We haven't done the final design. You got to do some test wells to see what the yield is for the water. I mean, these are ideas in planning. There's no been hard design. There's only been preliminary estimates and preliminary design and conversations.
Yeah, which reinforces the concept of moving that back a bit.
Yes.
Pushing it out further.
Yeah, you'll push the whole thing out. Once again, you can't start the project unless you have the funds. So if we push it back, we're definitely pushing back the mechanical stuff if we're going to go geothermal. So if we get the money in July of 23, the best we could do is do it to July of 24. If we get the money in July of 24, the best we could do is July 25. What's wrong with that? I don't see a big deal for that. The system's in trouble. We need to address it. But if we have a plan, we do it in 24, 25, the sooner the better. But I think we'll get it. We'll be able to last one more year. I mean, in my career, the only thing that ever surprised me was the failure of the boilers at Island Avenue.
Island Avenue. Yeah.
Yeah. And, they were on the plan. They were on the plan, but they weren't out. They were out 5 or 6 more years. And, as soon as we had a major failure, we had to move everything around, and we took care of them the next summer.
Yep.
But, if that happens, we have to then come back and regroup and say, hey, we can't fix them and they're unfixable. Although the insurance guy thought they were fixable.
Of course. They always think they're fixable.
Yeah. And then I won't go on to that details, but the point is, these are planning dollars for large capital projects that we've been putting off for too many years. 1 year won't make or break it, but we need to move these along. I'm not saying that we have to do it 1 year or the next. I just think we have to stay on it, have a plan, and get it done.
Yeah.
So those are the big numbers. And, down the bottom, it's 6 million. So I don't know if you want to go back over again. We talked about a lot of options, but I didn't write any notes down that we made any decisions. And we don't have to tonight. I talked to Stacy last week. I was pushing for July 1st because that's what the requirement says. I'm going back to the top so we can start Daniel Hanna if we wanted to. And she said, as long as we had it to her, next month, she'd be happy. But is there anything going to change? And if you want more time, we have it.
Okay. Galen?
Yeah, hi. Hi, everybody. Well, the big ticket items are the ADA, 1.4 million for ADA and Polson. The baseball field and lighting. These are all for 23, 24. And then the HVAC in year 2 and the doors, 1.2 million, Polson, and softball field, 779. And really, that's, if you want to make cuts or stretch things out, those are the things to focus on. And we've already kind of ruled out the HVAC for year 2. And the baseball field and lighting seems to be timely. So really, there's not a whole lot to cut, in my opinion. I mean, you could stretch out the ADA. But these are some tough calls.
Yeah, I agree, Galen. There's really not, and I think we had a real responsible lean ask this past year. And so, looking, I think that makes it even harder. I'm going from under $1 million to 6, but then looking ahead, we've got 7 million the next year, 5 million the next year, 4.5 the next. So I think last year was very low. And there's just not that many items on here. So Bill, I would, defer to your expertise. These systems better than anyone else. Where you think things maybe we split some stuff up like you suggested for certain items. But again, like Galen said, there's not a whole lot. Like, we're going to be trimming off a little bit here and there, but is that going to meet what the town needs?
Yeah, you're just going to move it out. So if you look at the bottom line, it's 6 million, 7 million, 4 million, or 5 million, and I was thinking of moving out over the next couple of years. So you're just going to move it out, so you have the same problem the other years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think any one of these, the doors and hardware, the ADA bathrooms, you could split those over a few years. I don't think without any debt, or 3.
So that's 400,000. That's 5. That's anywhere from 500,000, 400,000 to 700,000 savings per year if you divide them over 2 or 3 year period.
Right.
I think that's, worth considering. It sounds like our discussion before, the emphasis would be more on the hardware for safety and security issues, or, prioritizing certain spaces in the schools for both the door hardware and the bathrooms. Like, maybe there's more frequently utilized spaces to spread it out, but I think that's something that we can definitely consider.
So the doors and hardware, you want me to split that over 2 or 3 years?
What do you think, Bill?
I don't, I'm easy. I think we could do it over whatever the numbers. I'd say 3. Let's try with 3, or we want to start with 2 and see how that looks.
Hang on. I think when it comes to doors, we can keep it within 2 years.
Done.
The main concern for me is I want the doors working for security reasons and safety reasons as soon as possible. And by doing it either in 2 years or even in 1 year, if we get federal money, we can, I'm a little bit more concerned that if we're just spreading this out for budget reasons, and God forbid we have a scenario where there are kids exposed and teachers, because we just wanted to keep the CIP down a bit.
So you want me to move it into the year 1, 2, and 3, or you want me to move it in year 1? So next year's year 1, in my opinion. year 2 is the following year, then 3. So just be clear, Seth, we talked about moving not just the engineering and design, but we all talked about moving some of the funds into this year.
Yeah,
So would you like me to move half the money into this year with the design and then the other half, the balance next year?
that's what I would be most comfortable with, and assuming we'll be able to get. This gives us time so that, like, if we don't get federal funding for this project, that we could take that second half and split it up over 2 years.
You good with that, Emily?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just want to clarify, it's not that the doors are not working now, right,
The
Bill?
doors work fine.
Correct.
They have to lock them from the outside.
Right.
have
Want to be
keys.
very clear. Are
Yeah.
the doors lock?
The
It's
doors lock, the
update.
doors work. What they don't do is, like the high school ones that we retrofitted, is now that the teacher can come in and just walk up to the door from the inside and flip the lever and it says locked or it
Right.
says unlocked.
Right.
So now they got to open the door, or they have to keep the door locked at all times. And when they close the door, they're in the lockdown mode.
Yeah, just to be clear that the doors currently do lock. I don't want it to be
Yes.
mistaken in this conversation that they don't work.
No,
Okay, thank you.
the doors will work. I just
Excellent.
want to make sure, I'm going to move half the money up to this year with the design. The other half is going to be next year.
Now, my understanding, and I'm getting confused. I
No
thought
problem.
when we were talking about doors and putting that off, those were the bathroom doors and the ADA versus classroom doors.
So we're
Um,
talking about project number 05. See if I can highlight it.
Okay,
I did highlight. There we go. See
And
the
that's
yellow?
that's all classroom doors, right?
That is.
okay.
So in project number 5, replace all interior and exterior doors, modify interior doors to comply with ADA standards. That has to do with the width, how deep the doors are. We did the budget development in 2016 after a site visit, and that was the cost. So we're talking about the width of the doors, the depth of the doors, and the hardware.
Okay. Well, I would agree with Seth. There are very few things on the list in the current climate that are more important than working and updated doors. So,
Yeah, because it's more than just locking. It's the dimensions and the shatterproof nature of the window spaces.
No, Seth, this is just the doors themselves. So this is interior doors. We did talk about exterior doors because of the hardware and complying with ADA and improving the doors because of age. We weren't really talking about, the only security we're talking about is the locking of the interior classrooms. These doors were not the window stuff. So it was just the doorway, and the depth has to do with if you walk up to the doors that go out to the parking lot, that go out to where the long doors that go out towards the parking lot or near the track, the block opening is, say, 40 inches and it needs to be 50 inches. So I gotta do something with the door opening to make the width so someone can stand next to the door on the side and open the door, and it's supposed to be 18 inches without hitting yourself. So that's one of the problems, but we've come up with some good ideas how to fix that. So it's not just removing the door and the hardware, it's changing the openings, not the width per se, but the width of the opening so someone can stand up next to it, not the width of the door itself.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, is this Polson or the high school? This is Polson,
Polson.
right?
They're the
And-
highlighted yellow.
So are we talking about replacing the actual doors or just replacing the hardware on the existing doors?
Doors,
To the
hardware.
classrooms, to the classrooms.
On some of the classrooms, we're talking about doors, hardware, frame, opening.
So some of the door frames on the classrooms need to be widened for ADA, right? Because they're too narrow.
I'm generalizing on the door opening. The door opening to me is more than just the door itself. It's the width, the approach width. the doors are recessed. So the
Yeah.
recessed width, it's only like 18 inches deep or 12 inches deep. And that's part of the opening. That's not actually the doorway itself. It's the opening that sits back off the hallway. We got to fix that.
Yeah, like where lockers are abutted next to it or something.
Yes, yes. So we might bring the doors out more into the hallway so
Yeah.
that you can stand next to it to swing. It's all about swinging the door open and be able to stand next to it without getting jammed in that little
Yeah.
spot.
Okay, and the doors themselves, the door hardware and the door, like the wooden door and the hardware that comprises the knobs and the locks.
Yes,
Those are also all scheduled to be replaced.
yes,
And by replacing the doors, we would get new hardware that allows teachers to lock and unlock from inside using a deadbolt, right? Which is the modern standard for security.
yes.
Yeah, I know they still lock. How does a teacher from inside the classroom get out when the door is locked right now?
You can't get locked in the classroom. You can-
Okay, so when you just pull the handle, it automatically unlocks.
That is correct. You can only get locked from going in. You can't get locked from going out.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
you
I don't
can't
know.
lock the door.
Yeah.
You can't lock the door from the inside. You have to open the door, lock it from the outside, and then close
And then
it.
close it, which is
That's
supposedly
gotta
an issue.
change. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and we always had that on to be changed.
Yeah, I still kind of favor trying to front load those and just break it into 2 years instead of 3. And then if we need to, at least we've gotten, 3/4 of it done within 2 years. And there's only a lagging quarter if we need to put off into a 3rd year, half of the second year's allotment.
So
You see what I'm saying?
I have loading it the first year with half the money plus the design, putting the balance in the second year. Everybody agree on that? I see shaking heads. Okay, cool.
Yes.
I'll come back with that one. All right, anything else on Polson?
Thank you, Bill.
Want to move the ADA back?
Can you just click on bathroom ADA update so we see more detail on that one, Bill?
God, yes, love that stuff. So here it is right here. So
So this isn't an issue of safety. This is an issue of ADA compliance or updates, correct?
and I use that pretty loosely. It's the bathrooms are 1960. We have 22 of them. When we improve them, we're going to bring them up to today's standards. We do have bathrooms that comply with ADA. If someone had a wheelchair, they could go to the bathroom in the school, but some of them are just, you could never get into them. So when we renovate them, we're going to upgrade as many as we can, not all of them, to comply with ADA, and we're going to improve the bathrooms. So not all of them will comply with ADA, but most of them will, and we'll increase. So really it's age. I mean, if you've been in there, you've seen the bathrooms. I mean, if you've been in the boys' bathroom, the urinals are
Fine.
1960, they work fine. Well, they work, and they're clean.
And they are, for the most part, accessible?
Yes, there's definitely accessible bathrooms.
Are they in
Some are
convenient?
easier than others.
Okay. Okay.
The ones down by the office, the main office entryway, there's a faculty or ADA bathroom down there.
Like, Like, could we then either, if not push this back, then break it up over a couple of years and prioritize the most critical student learning spaces access? And if the layout of the building, like, is there an area of the building that is not as accessible, and work on one of those bathrooms to just spread it out?
Agreed.
So I'll leave the design money. We already have that. So I'll do the design. I'll break it over 3 years. So this year,
And
We already-
prioritize just be strategic
Yeah.
in how the work is done. I think that seems.
Like maybe the ones that require the ADA compliance upgrade, maybe tackle those first.
And make sure that they're spread out in accessible ways so that, students don't need to
Yeah,
navigate.
traipse
have the
across
money-
roll
we have
across
the
the
money
whole
to come up
building
with that
to get
plan.
that.
So I'll
Yeah.
split them over to the third years. We'll meet with the staff, and make sure that we address the ones that are
Great,
most needed.
great, I
Done,
think- perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
over 3 years, great. Anything else at Polson?
I don't think there's really anything else to,
Nope, I agree. Can we
Yeah.
go backwards to hand?
yep.
Because we skipped hand, and I wanted to make sure we did talk about some hand stuff.
I mean, there's just two items. There's the energy efficiency planning money and the HVAC. We want to keep the HVAC. So
So
it's,
I say we move the energy efficiency, we can move that out 2 years or 3 years. I don't see that as a big deal.
let's do it
uh,
then. If you think it's fine, Bill.
Yeah, I don't see that as a big deal. So I had it at energy efficiency. Is it the right one? Number 5?
Oh, 6.
Oh, 6. Yeah, that's why I was,
Yeah,
So
if you think that's okay to move, and then maybe there'll be, further
yeah, so I'm
development.
gonna move it to 26 and see what that looks like.
Okay,
You will see it right away. So I moved it out right here. It said 26. And it just brought the number down.
okay, there we go.
a little
Under,
bit. It moved it out because this was the weakest one here. That was less than 5 million. Now it's 5 something. So I think that was a strategic plan, a strategic move.
okay,
Now we just have to just talk about the HVAC.
I think we gotta keep that, right? I mean,
Yeah, I don't think we should move that one.
no, I think we're all in agree on that, right?
Yep.
Yes,
Yes.
Right.
All right, so we're done with hand.
Yep,
We could move the paving out. We're done with Polson. I need to adjust, when I have to do it over, break it over many years, I gotta change the formula, so it's not that easy. I can move it 1 year or 2 out, but I can't break it apart. Polson, anything at Polson you wanna,
we just did that.
I'm sorry, Brown, I'm on, I said
Brown.
Polson, I'm Brown. I'm on Brown.
I think there was quite a bit at Brown. We said we could move along a little bit.
Yeah, the parking expansion.
Well, we already have money budgeted for the design, so I don't know
Yeah.
and I don't know if paving, it's economical to spread that out or sort of,
We couldn't, I don't think we could break that up. We can move it out if you want. I can move it out a year.
Well, but when is it? Yeah, I guess you could move it out a year, but it needs to be done before the schools change over, because we're going from a, 3, 4, 5 to a K5. You're gonna have a lot more parking required.
Yeah, we can move it out 1 year, because if we get the money in 23 of July, I
Yeah.
can get it done for 24's summer. If I get it in 24 July, I can get it done for 25 summer. So we can move it out 1 year.
Let's talk about moving that out 1 year. Do people
And
agree with that, or?
With that,
Bill, if you're comfortable with that,
yes,
I'm comfortable
Yes.
with
Craig, would that be helpful? Do you think?
moving the.
Yeah,
park.
I think you're right on, and that it needs to be done before we open up the building. There'll be more staff there,
Yeah.
and then there'll be more parent, participation, driving, events, things like that. And there's not a lot of overflow areas for parking, certainly in a safe spot. So Billy, if we move it out 1 year, you can still have that done before the building opens. Cause any problems in terms of that summer versus a different summer?
no, if we do it summer of 25, we'll be fine, because we're gonna open that summer. So.
Okay, but I know that summer you might be doing playgrounds, you might be doing other things. I just didn't know. Cause
It's not,
maybe
I
because
don't
it's so
believe it.
far and back.
Yeah, it's not in the same area. I don't think it's
Okay.
gonna be a problem. I really think we could get it done that summer. We have a contract for it specifically. And might be the same the playground contractor might do the same thing in a different area. So
Gotcha.
I
Okay,
don't see that as a problem.
thank you.
Great.
Right,
Thank you.
No
Okay.
problem.
parking moves out and then. Oh, so we did talk, and Craig was saying about the library replacement, that it might make sense to move that out to be more in line with how the design looks for the renovations. Is that right?
Yes.
It's already out. It's already out, right?
Move
It's-
the
If I
design.
get the money that summer, July of 24, we'll be doing it in July of 25.
So, but we could move the design. Are you thinking we could also move the design money out, or is that too late?
No, I don't think we can move it, right? Oh, so we have the design money already for so this is a difference. I'm gonna do the design money this year coming up July 23. And then the next year I'll get the money for the construction for July of 25. I don't think you can move that, the library furniture, unless we find the funding somewhere else. We won't, if we're gonna have it in this project and fund it here,
Yeah,
it
you're
has to stay there for 25 opening.
right. Okay, yeah, never mind. It has to
The
stay.
walk-in cooler, we could maybe move. See what that one says. 15, it says Marchwood Colliers freezer, 50,000, it's just old. It needs to be replaced, but I say we can get another year out of it if you want.
I mean, it's
Oops. Is the
It's
wrong
5,000.
thing.
it's not a whole lot of money.
Looking
now.
No, it's not.
Like, I don't
I-
know, but
I didn't move it yet.
I don't feel
Yep.
strongly.
Yeah, well, what's the kitchen renovation?
But once again, though, the kitchen renovation is if we want that for
25.
summer of, if we want that for September of 25, it has to stay where it is. If we think we don't need the design for a kitchen, we can move it out and we could see how the kids do, and then we could design it after the kids are in and see what we needed to do. There's no one pushing for that. That was me, myself, and Colliers. We were talking about what we would need to do if we had to do improvements to the school to make it better for the kindergarten and the age of the kitchen. Remember, that's the original kitchen, 1970. We did do an addition and took over some of the cafeteria, and we bumped out the serving area. And we added, let's say, 30 feet by the length of the room so that we could serve the kids. Because they couldn't get them all in there at the same time. So we made 2 serving lines. So they had more selection and choice. I don't think you need that anymore I don't know.
Well, this doesn't involve anything, like seating for children. This is like pure, like the actual kitchen where you cook, right?
That is the actual kitchen that we cook in.
I don't know. I mean, could that be broken up maybe? Or is that you have to do it all at once? Probably have to do it all at once, right?
Yeah. And so I got this. So Chuck and I met last summer, this month, and we went over the kitchen. And this is the number he got for equipment, MEP, floor, ceiling, other environmental concerns, because we think might be some environmental stuff in there that might have to be sensitive to get rid of. And this is a total inside plan that Chuck and I talked about, and I wanted to bring to the table so the board could talk about it. Do we want to renovate the kitchen, the 1970 kitchen? These are the things, this is what a kitchen costs. He just renovated one at some other school, and he got, had great numbers on what it cost to put a kitchen in for an elementary school.
So let me ask this, pushing that out a year, if we could still live with this 1970s circa kitchen for another year, is that going to create any problems like we just had? I forget which school was it, Jeffrey, where one of the outlets caught on fire during a school day this year?
So the answer is it should not. And I don't know what you're talking about. Be interested to find the details.
Wasn't
on that.
there a fire in one of the kitchens because one of the outlets kind of?
Ryerson had that over the summer, last summer.
Oh, it was
about a
in the
year
summer.
ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I if it was that bad, I would have known about it. So it must have been some kind of problem that my guys took care of. Must not have been that big a deal. I don't recall it.
Yeah. Well, it
And
must not have been a
there's
big
no
deal if you don't
electrical issues.
recall.
If there's any electrical issues or safety concerns, we fix them right away. We're talking about capital improvements for renovating a whole kitchen to
Yep.
update and meet today's standards. Some of the kitchen equipment's is 1970, just like Jeffrey and Ryerson. They're doable. So the question is, do we want to try to have it for the school, or do we want to get the kids in there and then look at the renovation after they're in there, and then we can decide what we really need?
I'm open to, what do you guys think? But I also am trying to be a little sensitive to pushing some stuff out a little.
I think we need to push it out. We have to make some tough decisions here,
And I think
I
it's
think
not really impacting the student experience, right? They've been managing to cook food for the kids in that kitchen. They're going to be smaller kids, but I would be more concerned if it was an issue of the tables little kids were eating at, or their access, how small children experience the dining experience. But if this is more back of house and it works so far, I'd also be inclined to squeak it out a little bit longer.
You brought up a point that isn't in my plan. And that's, I don't know how the kids are gonna sit at the tables that are there. We haven't really talked about that. That might be, once again, so some of this stuff, I think, for example, not publicly, but with Dr. Cook and the staff, we're pushing for kitchen tables at the high school because it'll help my guys out. The tables are old. We're trying to find money at the end of the year, to do some of that stuff. So I don't think we have to resolve everything in the capital plan.
Okay.
I moved out 1 year, you can see.
All right.
Yeah, I think it adds a little bit of money for the escalation, but
If
I think
something's
it's worth
breaks,
it.
it'll be fixed, if they can't prepare food, or heaven forbid, the ice cream machine breaks down. Well, just a problem.
Exactly.
So I think the millwork should stay. I think the window replacement should stay, and I think the playground needs to stay.
Agreed.
All
Yeah, the
right.
kids are gonna need a playground when they arrive there.
All right, now the big conversation. What are we doing with the athletics?
This is a tough one, Bill. It's a lot of money.
Yeah,
But
no doubt. The tennis courts is a lot of money, and the baseball fields. So if we push those out, both of them, it'll move, but it'll just make the next year, look, you can
Yeah.
see the bottom, we're down to 5.9. That didn't change any. But I haven't broken up the other ones. I couldn't
Right. We
break the
gotta,
other stuff up. I will. And I'll send it out to you when I get that done.
is there anything that can be broken up here, like the baseball field lighting? Is that just one field, or is that multiple fields? Like, I'm wondering, is there any way that we can spread it out a little, or that's just one field?
Yeah, I don't see how you can spread this out because you have to dig up the field and put the lighting in. There's no lighting there now. There's no infrastructure for the power. That's why it's so much money. You're gonna have to put a big service here, new power.
That's the cost to light one baseball field.
Yes.
Woof. Okay.
Yeah, not, it's the putting the power in, digging up the trenches, putting the poles up. It's not just the light fixtures.
Yeah,
themselves.
no, I get it. It's a big project. I totally get that.
Yeah, we're looking at relamping the existing fixtures at the high school. It's a couple $100,000, somewhere between 150 and 200 just to put new fixtures up.
Is that our varsity field?
Yes. It's really, other than one at the town campus, it's really the only one. The town campus is,
Yeah.
So, Bill, what do you suggest? I mean, you know this, again, better than anyone. Like, if this needs to be done, it needs to be done. Like,
yeah, I have a hard time putting a lot of money into the, just because of, I've been here so long. And in the philosophy of the board, in the history always has been, we don't have enough money. Our money's going into the classrooms in the school, not into the athletics. This is the first year that the board's ever seriously considered this. You always have pushed it back, but you can't, the number just gets bigger. You can keep pushing it back. I'm selfish. I want to do the geothermal. I want the baseball field because it's been on there so long, but the tennis court's been on there just as long, I'm a numbers guy. How many people use the baseball field versus the tennis court? What's the best bang for your dollar, And I think they're equal. I think the tennis is equal. And then there's a lot of community support for the tennis, but we're here to take care of the high school programs, right? We're not excluding the town, and we're going to a partnership with the town. So most of the athletic programs have been a partnership with the town, and the board hasn't really, tried to fund those or go down that road. They'd rather argue for the teacher.
So there's two separate lines. line 12 is baseball field add lighting. And
Yes.
line 2 is field improvements to update the baseball plus
Yes.
other area. Can you describe a little, maybe click on that and show us what
Sure.
item O2 is?
I'd love to. Thank you, Seth.
Thanks. I
So-
love you like going to your backup materials. I know.
Yes, so, and this is with Craig Simple's help. And before I got involved, Mike Ott, the town engineer, had a design. The public works engineer, town engineer, had a really sophisticated design, and he was doing the planning, and then, he moved on. And I don't know what he did with his stuff, so I met with Craig Simple. We went down to Bryant McMahon High School, and I talked to their purchasing department in 2016. They did a turf field, that's synthetic turf. This is what it cost. And it was a similar size to the Polson. They used their existing lighting. They didn't do new lighting, right? Existing lighting. We need to add lighting if we want to put in the project, Talked to Chuck. We talked about the numbers for lighting. And we added that in. So.
Is that currently an artificial turf? I'm sorry, I don't know this. It's behind
problem.
Bolton. Is that an artificial turf field that we need to replace the artificial turf, or is it natural grass that we're talking about upgrading to turf?
Natural grass, and it's fine. You ask me any questions you want. It's reasonable. You're not out there playing baseball. It is a naturally grass field, grass.
And in fact, we had to remove other teams from the field this year near the end of the season because it was getting in poor shape. Because it gets a lot of use and rain and things like that. So we had to dedicate it just to varsity for some time. The town was great and moved the other leagues, but it would be great to have turf like the softball field is turf. And that allows us to play right after the rain and get a lot of use on it.
Yeah, these facilities are used a lot by outside users, but be clear, there are kids. They're not using them during our school programs. They're using them during our youth organization programs. They're all town kids, but they use them a lot. More than
So
we
it's
can
hard to maintain the grass, really.
Well, the infield is the hard part. The grass is easy.
Yeah.
So
Can we, if it's not lit now, can we talk about doing the field one year and then lighting it the next year?
we can talk about that, but it doesn't make any sense because we'd have to dig up the.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, but what if you did the field, what I meant was do all the underneath stuff like the conduits and like pre-wiring it underneath the field to the extent it needs to be, capping it off and then putting the poles and the lights up the following year.
The answer is absolutely, we could do that. Putting the conduit in the ground's the easy part, but you'd have to design the lighting. And the other big part is the infrastructure you need for the power to bring service out there. So that's a big number. So the answer is you could absolutely push the lighting out a couple more years, and that's not a bad idea.
So you would still have in line 12, probably half of that cost for running the conduit and prepping it with service, electrical service and all that, but you could push off half of it to a year later, maybe. Right?
Yes, I think, yeah, and we'll leave the design there and we'll push out, say, 200,000. We'll put 200,000 in there and let's leave the rest out. So I could break that up into, I'll break that up into 2 years. Is that the consensus?
What do you guys think? Does that make sense?
Like this. Well, for me, first, I would probably try to remember what the parent function is when I remember.
Wait, is that Galen? Who's talking?
Who was talking there?
Sorry, that was me. It makes sense to me.
It makes sense to me. I just wonder, there's a lot of community use. And I can remember tremendous support and fundraising in the community around football fields and others, whether there's that kind of support in town. But that's, I mean, that's a long process and, a conversation for another time, I'm sure.
All right, I put a third in the first year and 2/3 in the second year. Let's go back up to the top of the list. Do we decide anything on the tennis courts? We're leaving those, right? And then we have the tennis court lights that I added in afterwards.
I think if we're gonna do something, we should do it all with the tennis courts while we're replacing them. And it sounds like from what Craig, you were saying at the last meeting, that they're in fairly poor condition and that we don't have the facilities that we need there. So I'm in favor of keeping them where they are. I mean, these
You
things.
got it.
done.
Yeah.
I
All
would
right,
agree
great.
with that. We're not talking a huge, number via the lights and so forth. Do the whole package and get it done.
No
Yeah.
problem. What about the baseball field?
The field improvements, Bill, you mean?
Yes, I'm sorry, number 2. I was going from the top down. This field improvements, update the baseball field. You want me to split that a third and 2/3 like we did the lights?
Is that appropriate?
It's not really possible, is it?
No, I just made that up. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I
Gotta
think
make
we
it
need to keep that, where it is in order to also go with the plan on line 12 to
Right.
pre-electrify the field and run the conduit underneath the new field. And to set the post intervals and stuff. So I think we need to keep that there now. Right?
Okay,
That makes sense.
no problem. We haven't moved much then, so I just moved. We're gonna move. I'm just looking at the numbers. I'm moving, Polson's the only thing, and I can't do it because the formulas won't allow me to move a portion of it. But if I move Polson, I'm gonna save 500,000 on the baseball field, so that's gonna be 5.4. I'm gonna add 600,000 back to Polson. You wanted me to move the hardware design and half the money in the first year, so I'm gonna add back 600,000, so that's a wash. Gonna be actually 100,000 in the positive. And I'm gonna split the ADA bathrooms into a third. So I'm gonna save about $1 million there. So we're gonna get down to 4 million.
Good.
I think that's very good. I mean, this is the most brief CIP I've ever seen for us. And, there's not a lot of items. There was like 8 items on this. They're just some big ticket ones. And I think that's very responsible. We can't.
All right, I'll make the adjustments and I'll email it out to the committee. I don't know if you want to look it over again. Do you want to set up a time to meet it? And then when's the next Board of Education meeting?
21st.
Do you want to have a meeting right before that just to confirm I did what you wanted?
Or, I mean, you could just circulate it. If we all agree now and the 3 committee members vote on accepting the changes we just made, then all you need to do is recirculate the CIP plan to the committee and everyone
good
can
with
just
that.
double check.
But
No need to keep meeting,
but we need to vote it out of committee
Well, you would be doing that now.
now pending these approved changes by Bill.
Yep.
And just to go over them again, the only ones I haven't noted that are gonna
Emily,
take.
do you mind if I run? I had a 4:15
yeah.
call, so, okay.
But Craig, real quick, you good
Yes.
with everything? Okay,
I'm-
thank you.
I'm good. Yeah, so we'll just need the committee's support. I think when we get to the time with the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen on the CIP, but I really appreciate you prioritizing safety and items that are really impact kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Good outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
So
So I'm
then,
gonna highlight the ones I'm gonna change.
okay,
So we're all on the same page, and then I will definitely email them to you pretty soon.
Perfect,
That
thank
I'm gonna
you.
take
yep,
and break it over 3 years. This one, I'm going to add the 600,000 into this year and leave 600 in next year. And the Brown School, I already did that. I moved the parking lot back. I already did that. And then the only other thing that I'm gonna do is this last one, the softball field. Is it the softball field? Oh, no, this is the baseball
Baseball
field.
lighting. Yep.
I'm gonna move a 2/3 of it into the next year.
Yep.
And I'll leave a third there now to get the infrastructure underneath. And we
Yeah.
have the design number, so we should be able to design it and then put that in as part of the stuff. So great.
And, with any luck, if we get $1 million in security money that we can use towards this, I mean, that may be a little optimistic, but, it should be below 4 million, most likely.
All right, I'll make those changes and I'll get them to you in a couple days.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, Bill.
Happy to do it.
So then let's just take a quick motion to move this draft CIP with the changes we discussed forward to the full board for consideration, recognizing that Bill will send an updated version to the committee. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, I'll second it. Steve gets the motion. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Any discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
No problem. I'll have it done and I'll get it right to you guys. Have a great night. Anything else?
No, that's
Just
great.
one thing, Bill.
Sure.
They say everybody's replaceable, but
Ah.
in your case, I gotta say, I don't think so.
Right.
I hope you guys know that I did a 2-year extension. I plan on staying for 2 more years. And I'm gonna work with Dr. Cook and, have a hopefully nice transition plan. And, after that, I definitely would talk about maybe finishing projects that are open if you guys want, but it's too far
Great.
away to make any deals, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to stay for 2 more years. I look forward to it. It's a pleasure working for you guys. I enjoy it greatly. And that's why I'm happy to stay. So,
Back
Good to
at
hear.
Thank you so
Bill.
much, Bill. Yeah.
thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Um,
See you later.
Before we close, I do want to just recognize that it is a public meeting, and if we have any members of the public or who would like to speak, now would be a time to do so.
Is there a Q&A? Somebody?
Okay, we had one person, it was Diane who was here. She left.
Oh, okay.
She did have a comment. She wrote, it is my understanding that the tennis courts are not in very good shape at all.
They're not in good shape. Even if we fund the money, we're still gonna have to do some repairs between now and then. It's too bad. We did some patchwork to get the courts playable. I am looking into the town courts are the same exact way ours are. They have hired someone, the new AD&A, the new athletic director and I went and looked at the town courts. They're gonna fix them in the next week or two.
Okay.
As soon as we see what they did to fix them, we might hire the same company to do ours. Because we're not gonna make 2 years. And, if we get the money in July of next year, it's gonna take me another year to get them done,
Yeah.
So we gotta have to get them to work for another 2 years. And, we're not proud of the tennis courts.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's staying where it is on here, so that's good.
Have a great night.
Thank you all. Thanks,
Thank you.
Emily.
So
Thanks,
much.
Thank
Bill.
you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Wendy.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Wendy.
Bye.